Good morning, everybody. It's me, Catherine Hudson, and I'm here for the last review giveaway of Stephen King's Dark Tower series. We are at book 7, The Dark Tower. This is the last monster book in the 7-book series. I'm not counting the one through the keyhole. I know it is part of the series and picks up in their storyline, but I like just doing these 7. So today I'm reviewing The Dark Tower, book 7 in the series, and anybody who comments, this is your last chance over the last 8 weeks, since I didn't do a video last week. It's your last chance to comment on any of the videos and enter to win as a randomly selected chosen winner a copy of this book in my hand. Came right on my bookshelf. Now I have that massive hole in my bookshelf behind me from giving away all my Stephen King books. And this one is illustrated by Michael Wallen. I think I said that. And then you also get a copy of one of my books, the first of my dark fantasy duology. This is Daughter of the Drackan. Both of these will be shipped to you in the mail, end up in front of you. A couple of really awesome, sweet reads. At least I know for a fact that one of them is. And I hope you would enjoy my book as well. So getting into this review of The Dark Tower. Oh, got something in my eye. Excuse me. There's so much that I want to say about it, but I don't want to give anyone any spoilers. This is such a fantastic book, and it wraps up the series in a way that I never anticipated when I read it for the first time, which made it so incredibly mind-blowing when I finished the 7th book at the very end. So it picks up where Song of Susanna left off, in that Mordred, Susanna's demon baby, son of both Roland and the Crimson King, is born, and he actually tries to eat her. He turns into a spider. So he's kind of like this, taking after the Crimson King in the evil sort of way, and then, he doesn't care about even his own mother. And Susanna escapes. Arcatet finally reconnects with each other, and they go find the breakers, which are like sorcerers, I guess, and they're working on breaking down the beams. All things serve the beam again. So they stop these breakers from breaking the beams, which are basically supporting the Dark Tower and keeping it and all the other worlds alive, intact, working. And then they let's see, at another point, I'm trying not to give too many things away, but at another point they find out that Stephen King himself, the author, the writer of their story, is about to get hit by a van, and they know how important he is for finishing their story and giving them what they need. And Jake pushes Stephen King out of the way, and I guess I'm going to give this spoiler. Jake dies, as he has many times before in the series, and Roland is completely devastated by this, because he has come to think of Jake as his true son, especially after having pulled him from so many different worlds into his own, after Jake has died so many times. And I especially love this last book so much, because every time, so I've read this 9 times, I've read the series 9 times, and every time I cry. I don't cry when I read books. I really don't do that. So it takes some serious writing skills to make me have an emotional reaction like that, which I always love. So maybe when I read it again, if there's ever a time when I don't cry, I'll know that I have finally read the Dark Tower series enough times. And then without Jake, the quartet is heading once again towards the tower. Susanna gets pulled into, that happens later. They run into, Susanna and Roland run into Dondello, I think, so there's a vampire in the series too, and he is feeding off of them by telling them jokes, and it's creeping them out, and they really can't stop, and it's like such a weird scene. And then they end up getting all these helpful hints and clues while they're captured by this vampire to help them escape, and it turns out that those are actually coming from Stephen King, and it's one of those like illuminating moments where Roland and Susanna realize that Jake, having sacrificed himself and pushed Stephen King out of the way to keep him from dying, actually enabled them to continue their story. And so they escape from this vampire's basement, and they have the artist with them. He's called the artist. His name is Patrick. And he can pretty much draw anything in this world, and or change it, erase it, create it. They're traveling towards the tower, just forever onward to the tower. And Susanna finally does go back to New York in a different timeline. And Mordred, the spider demon child, is coming after them, and Susanna escapes. And Mordred's coming after Roland, and Mordred is more or less has a key to get into the Dark Tower. But this is the part that really gets me every single time. Is Oi, the Billy Bumbler, is part of their content. He's with them, and he helps Roland escape, we'll just say. And I get super emotional about that every time too. Which I have 2 dogs, so maybe that has something to do with it. But then finally Roland is, he's got his clear path to the tower, and he goes inside. And it was actually, I think, a brilliant warning, I suppose, on Stephen King's part, that we get to the very end and Roland enters the tower, and he meets with the Crimson King, and then we flash to Susanna in a different world, a different reality, I suppose, where she ended up when she went back through the doorway between worlds, and she finds Eddie and Jake again, and in this world they're brothers, and they all kind of remember their past life with Roland, and they've all given up being gunslingers in order to have just a happy life, which none of them have ever had before. So they are able to make that together, which is a great place to stop. But who likes happy endings? Are you kidding me? I don't. And this doesn't necessarily have a happy ending if any readers decide that they want to continue after that last chapter with Susanna, Eddie, and Jake, because and Stephen King actually puts a warning at the end of the book where he's like, you should probably stop reading if you're happy with what happened here. There's some more parts that you can read if you want to keep going, but maybe don't. So, I know that there are so many readers who have read this series and have been completely destroyed by the ending and reading that last, the coda chapter, the very, very end. And, plenty of people have said, and even commented in my videos too, that they loved the entire series until the last book, and then it was stupid. Which I disagree with entirely. And I can't even say what's in that last chapter. If you have read the series before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you haven't read the series, you need to. So get all the way to book 7 and read that last chapter. It's incredible. I was immediately just shocked and stunned when I read it, and then went through, in the span of like 2 minutes, I went through like complete and utter rage and mourning, and like I was astounded, and holy cow, this actually happened, this is a thing. And I went through like all the spectrum of emotions, and started reading book 1 again the same day because my mind had been opened to so many things. I loved the series reading through it the first time. When you get to the end and you feel compelled to read it a second time, which I would hope that all of you feel the need to do afterwards, it is always a different journey every time, completely. That's why this is a series I've read the most times out of any book I've ever read ever. And it's absolutely fantastic, and it is one of those endings. It's like, oh man, this is not what I expected. This is the last thing that I thought was going to happen. When we enter the tower with Roland and we see what's coming, there's all this tension built, and then the end. And it was not an expected ending. And the more I thought about it when I read it the first time, the more I realized that it was the only ending that could have ever possibly been created. And anything else beyond this ending would have been completely unsatisfactory in every way possible. And I actually tried to imagine what might have been better than the way King ended the series. Nothing's better. And I actually had the same thought process when I was writing the end to Mother of the Drackan, the second book in my dark fantasy duology, that I knew quite a few people were probably going to be very upset by the way it ended, but it couldn't have possibly been any other way. So in that regard, Stephen King and I are on the same page. There's no other way to do it. Sorry if you're upset, not sorry because it's awesome. So that is my review of The Dark Tower, Book 7 in the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. I give it a bajillion stars. That's an awful rating system because I absolutely love it, and it propelled me into reading the series 8 other times at least. I'm going to be starting it again because these reviews have gotten me so excited about these books. So leave a comment, say something, let me know what you thought about the ending. I know there are so many varied opinions on this, but I want to hear it. I want to hear from you guys. And next week, I already have another series planned that I'm going to be reviewing for you. I'm actually doing George R.R. Martin's Song of Ice and Fire with all the 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5 books that are out there. It's not even a complete series, but I'm going to go ahead and do some reviews of it because I actually very much enjoy it, and I can get into my feelings about the series not being finished next week when I start those reviews. So I also want to hear what else you guys want to hear me review. Bonus points if you make a suggestion that I haven't ever read before, and then I will be picking and choosing from the comments which book, which series next I'm going to be reviewing. So that's about it. So again, leave a comment. You enter for your chance to win signed copy of Daughter of the Drackan by me, and this big giant monster of a book, Book 7, The Dark Tower by Stephen King. I will send both of these to one randomly selected winner in the mail. You will get it, and then they will both be yours. So we did it. We made it through the entire series. Thanks so much for all of you who stuck with me the entire time. I had so much fun, and I will see you all next week. Thanks so much.